Hello, my friends, and welcome to This Week in Space. I'm your host with the most, Joan Emerson Bell. I'm coming to you on the YouTube this week because I'm taking a little break from Instagram, and I apologize if that inconveniences anybody, but we're going to try and give you the same space wisdom with some extra razzle dazzle this week. So, yeah, thanks for tuning in. And yeah, it's also a little easier for me since I'm traveling to not have to go live and be at a certain place at a certain time. This week, I'm coming to you from in front of Heirloom Modern Studios in Richmond, California. They make some great home decor, shelving, benches, tables, stuff like that. I'll put a link to their work in the show notes at the end of the show. But yeah, we're here. We're doing it. So, welcome. Come on in, sit on down, and welcome to This Week in Space. We're going to be talking about the astrological weather for January the 27th, 2025 through February the 2nd, 2025. So we're going to be talking about the Aquarius New Moon, talking a little bit about Chinese New Year, talking about Imbolic and as well as some of the astrological aspects that we will be experiencing this week. Before I jump into the current weather, one of the things that I just want to talk about because I noticed a parallel, an echo, a astrological rhyme, if you will. I just saw the Bob Dylan movie, A Complete Unknown, which I don't know. I grew up on Bob Dylan, and there I have a soft spot in my heart for that person or his contribution or his music. And you know, I liked the movie, and one of the things that it's about is Dylan going electric at the Newport Folk Festival, which occurred on July 25th, 1965. And so the reason that I bring that up is that at that time, at that moment, Saturn was retrograde in Pisces at 16 degrees and 35 minutes. Now, Saturn reached that degree last Thursday, January 23rd, 2025. And I just think that that's super interesting. The movie was released apparently on December the 25th. Of 2024, when Saturn was at 14 degrees and 6 minutes of Pisces. And so I just wanted to note that this was the Saturn return of that Newport Folk Festival when Dylan played an amplified set and like people melted down, right? And I think it's kind of interesting to just note this moment of Saturn and Pisces, and this might help us to understand some of the current Saturn and Pisces themes, right? We can see some rhymes, we can see some echoes, we can see some parallels, perhaps. Um, and some of the things that come up is Saturn is about restriction and limitation, and also containers and traditions, and it's kind of the old guard or the old way of doing things. um, thank you very much. And so, yeah, Saturn is the old way of doing things, and Bob Dylan had a very different vision for his music and for the structure of music moving forward, right? So Pisces is interested in the kind of big picture, not the small container or the immediate limitations. Pisces also deals with our dream and vision and the things that we are striving for. Bob Dylan like had this vision and wanted to evolve and change, and he wanted to innovate and try out new things. I think he cared more about the music than he did about the genre or label that was put on the music. I don't know this person, right? I don't know the man, but that is sort of what I'm assuming, right? And when he played this amplified set, people booed him and called him Judas, right? However, his vision kind of changed the structure of folk music and rock music. And I think another piece of this is that Dylan was just wanted to participate in creativity and expression, right? He was like, this is just the music, this is my poetry, this is my creativity, like I don't care what you want to call it, and I don't really want other people labeling it, right? Like it was other people's Saturnian divisions of this is rock and roll, this is folk music, this is how things should be done, this is how things were done. And I think he was able to see the bigger picture of creativity and self-expression, and help to break down some of these Saturnian divisions or dissolve them, which is maybe a more Piscean way of doing things, right? So he had the courage to sort of pursue this creative dream, and in doing so, it transformed these limitations and created a much bigger vision of what could be possible. And I'm just bringing this in because Saturn is right around the same degree it was at when Dylan did this, right? So this is the Saturn return of that Newport Folk Festival, which I think is pretty interesting. And this is the third pass over that point that, for this iteration of Saturn in Pisces. I believe the first one happened on April 30th, and the second one happened in late August. And this is the final pass of Saturn in Pisces, moving over that degree of Dylan's amplification at the Newport Folk Festival. And I think this is a great example of Saturn and Pisces, right? Coming up against these limitations and the limit of imagination and the structure of what is acceptable, and the ways which we can push against those limits and create change that allows for a bigger container or more creative expression or more expansive vision. So I just wanted to bring that in because that was a cool little fun fact that I noticed. And I remember when Saturn first moved into Pisces, I was like, oh, this is the Saturn return of that moment. And then I totally forgot about it. And I think that there's been a lot of talk and awareness of Saturn moving into Aries, which is going to be happening this year. But, we're still only halfway through. We're still only in the second decan of Saturn and Pisces. So I think it was important to kind of name that and look to the past and be like, what's happening now? And how is this related to that? How can this be related to that? So, getting on to current news, right? The current astrological weather. Monday, January the 27th, we have Mercury entering into the sign of Aquarius. Aquarius is a fixed air sign. Mercury will be holding it down in Aquarius until February the 14th, right? So Aquarius is a Saturn ruled sign that deals with what's inside the walls of the city or the known or the acceptable structure, and what is outside. With Mercury here, we can think about it as the known versus the unknown, perhaps. Mercury dealing with cognitive function, communication, what we know, how we process information, how we make connections, right? Aquarius is an air sign which deals with some of these mercurial processes like information and communication and networking. And one of the ways that Aquarius gathers in or processes information is by getting outside and getting some distance, right? Getting a little perspective. It finds an outside perspective with which to observe the unfolding events inside the walls of the city or inside the walls of the known. One of the reasons that I keep saying city is that when these sort of the traditional astrology is being developed, people are living in kind of walled cities or little city states, and it is the sort of particularly in Rome, there's a class called the Aquarii, who are the water bearers, which I believe were enslaved people who are going and gathering water and bringing it into the Roman apartments and climbing the stairs and pouring it into the baths or the cisterns for their masters, right? Or maybe employers. I'm not really sure how that system functioned, but the Aquarii were kind of lower social class, right? Who were able to leave the city, and in leaving the city, they were able to gain a different perspective on the functioning of the city or in the systems of the city than the people who spent their entire lives living within the walls, right? So even though the Aquarii was sort of a lower social class, they had an advantage and they had a perspective and they had the ability to look and see and learn and do and notice things that other people couldn't from within the walls of the known. So I just wanted to kind of clarify why I kept saying city, Right. But, you can think about this in your normal life as you are existing in whatever city, town, county, wherever you live, right? And you're like sort of within the walls or the structure of what you do all the time. And then when you are able to leave that, or you take a trip, or, go to a different place or go to a different neighborhood and look back upon what is normalized to you, you get a different perspective, right? You're able to see different things. It sort of shakes us out of the known. And I think this is one of the functions of Aquarius, right? And so Mercury, as the messenger, fosters communication as they move through the thresholds of the liminal of the inside and outside. Mercury can bring the information from this like outside perspective back into the known and help to communicate it, right? So like as you go on the trip and you meet all these people and you do all these things and you get like cool fancy disco ball coats, then you come back to what is known and you're like, oh, I saw this sea monster. It was as big as a building, right? Broad as a barn, right? You get to tell the people, communicate your experience, what you learned, what your perspectives were, how, you engaged with other people, and what sort of intellectual shift occurred, right? And so, one thing that we can practice is sort of detaching, right, from what we believe or what we think we know. And I think this is one of Mercury's like main functions in Aquarius is to be able to get that outer perspective and to sort of, I don't want to say intellectualize it, but like maybe detach from sort of the emotion of like the nostalgia. Oh, that was my home, that was my place, right? To be able to step outside of that and be like, oh, I am observing something different, right? To come into the sort of observational mind. And this can, allow us to observe the unfolding of events in, a place of non-attachment, right? And so one of the things that I think about is Robert Anton Wilson wrote this book called The Cosmic Trigger. I believe this is in The Cosmic Trigger. He wrote Schrodinger's Cat, the Illuminati trilogy, a bunch of books. Kind of like interesting wizard character. And one of the things that he talks about, and I think The Cosmic Trigger, is that we develop these reality tunnels, right? And this is a process of developing a belief system. Right. And so, for example, astrology is a reality tunnel, right? And I'm talking to you through the reality tunnel of astrology, right? We could also, have the reality tunnel of astronomy or geomancy, or I don't know, any like way that you want to create a system for observing the world and making sense of things, right? And so as we develop these reality tunnels, we're in the process of developing a belief system, right? And so Wilson talks about how he would practice developing new reality tunnels in order to expand his awareness, right? So the astronomy reality tunnel, or the astrology reality tunnel, or the, I don't know, lizard people reality tunnel, right? And by developing these sort of different reality tunnels, they allowed him to move through different states of awareness and different belief structures. And I think this is pretty radical and pretty Aquarian, right? To not just be like astrology is the only way, right? To be able to hold that and then shift and be like, oh, astronomy, and like I think astrology is nonsense, right? And I can totally believe the world through a like very materialistic, scientific, astronomical viewpoint, right? Um, and be able to shift between these because that expands our reality, right? Instead of like clinging to this is the only way, this is the only way it can be, right? And becoming like really emotionally invested in it, right? And I think one of the things that we can think about with the glyph of Aquarius, and I think that I've said this before, is it's the wiggly lines, these two wavy lines, right? Which might be Wi-Fi signals, it might be information, and it also might be reality tunnels. And learning to I think with Mercury is being able to move between these reality tunnels, right? To get the observational view, right? This detached view where it's like, oh, I can like gather that information. I can believe this thing. I can believe this thing, and not be so kind of emotionally involved in it, right? And so another way to think about the glyph of Aquarius, and this comes from Austin Coppock, is that one of the wavy lines is, maybe the upper one is the ideal, right? This is the, what we are striving for. And then the other one, the lower one, is maybe the reality, the Saturnian, right? So I think one of the things that we are doing in Aquarius is reconciling our reality with our ideal, right? This is what I want it to be. This is what it actually is. How do I sit with that? How do I be with this? And again, Mercury, Hermes, right, is the god of the crossroads, moves between the upper world and the lower world, right? The upper world of super consciousness and the lower world of physical reality or the unconscious. Mercury might help us to mediate the divine ideal with the physical Saturnian reality with all of its limitations and imperfections. Right? Mercury here may offer us a perspective that can help us to notice those flaws in the way that they can be improved. And so I also want to note that Mercury will be in the sign of Aquarius up until February the 14th, at which point they move into Pisces, which is the sign of their fall. And February 14th is Valentine's Day, and there's a lot of expectations that people have around Valentine's Day. And Mercury moving into a sign of their fall might create some confusion, right? Miscommunications, communication issues. So just a heads up for that, as we're moving towards Valentine's Day and all of these expectations, there may be some communication breakdowns, some brain fog, some confusion. So just leave some space in your Valentine's Day planning for those things. Okay. Tuesday, January the 28th, Venus enters their shadow phase. This is occurring at 24 degrees and 37 arc minutes of the mutable water sign of Pisces. This means that Venus will this is the sort of beginning of the very beginning, the inklings, the seeds, the whispers of the Venus retrograde, which will begin on March 1st at 10 degrees and 50 arc minutes of Aries, and will continue until April the 12th, when Venus will station at this degree, 24 degrees and 37 minutes. So as Venus enters their shadow phase, they're entering into the space that they will retrograde back to during that retrogradation, which will again begin on March 1st and end on April the 12th. And so, like I said last week, and I talked about this in the kind of intro in the preamble last week, perhaps look for parallels with things that were happening 7 years ago in 2017. That Venus retrograde occurred between March 4th and April 17th of 2017. And so something to be aware of. And that was between the signs of Aries and Pisces as well. So Venus only retrogrades in 5 signs, right? So their orbit makes this five-pointed star as they move through their sort of orbit around the zodiac, and they hit their retrogrades, and they retrograde in the same signs, in the same 5 signs approximately, every 7 or 8 years. So you can look what houses in your chart Pisces and Aries fall in, right? And you can think back to what was happening for you in March and April of 2017. And there might be some echoes, right? There might be some rhymes with events that are occurring now with what was happening back then. And for me, that was like a pretty big period of life for me. I made some big changes during that retrograde period, or like there were seeds planted during that retrograde period, which kind of shifted my life in some pretty amazing ways. So, I don't know what it's going to be like this time, but something to think about and something to track. We'll talk more about this as we move towards the retrograde station. But something else to think about is Venus has a lot to do with what we like and dislike, right? And so Venus retrograde tends to ask us to rethink what we value, what we are attracted to, what we want to push away. But again, we'll talk more about that and the things to do, things to think about, and things probably not to do during that retrograde process as we get closer to the beginning of March. Okay, Wednesday, January the 29th. We get a new moon in Aquarius. This is occurring at 9 degrees and 51 arc minutes of the fixed air sign of the water bearer. That's right, Aquarius. And this new moon will occur at 4:35 in the a.m. Pacific time, making that 7:35 a.m. Eastern time. So real early in the morning, Wednesday. If you're doing some new moon workings, you might want to begin those the night before on Tuesday evening. And again, before the moon comes to that new moon point, maybe considering releasing things and letting things go. After it makes that conjunction with the sun, then we want to consider seeds that we are planting, right? So as it is waning, we are making space, and as it is beginning, moves from that like waning point to that conjunction with the sun, moving towards that waxing phase ever so slowly. We want to think about, okay, these are the seeds that we are planting. These are the things that I would like to cultivate. So, just a couple of the aspects that are going on. Jupiter, who is retrograde at 11 degrees of Gemini, will be trining this new moon, adding a little support. We'll be talking about that a little later in the show. Venus is stuck between Saturn and Neptune. I think that is kind of beneficial in a way because Saturn is the ruler of Aquarius, the traditional ruler. And, I think Venus helps to sweeten Saturn, who's kind of a curmudgeon. Little beneficial there. We have a Mercury conjunction with Pluto in Aquarius, which we'll be talking about in a minute because that is exact on Wednesday, the 29th. And, I think that might bring up some intensity. So, before we get to that, another event that is occurring on Wednesday, the January the 29th, is we have Chinese New Year, at least in the lunar calendar. I believe the solar calendar, the Chinese New Year begins on the 3rd or the 4th of February. I went to a talk by Jenifer Ng, who is a astrologer. I saw this through the the International Association of Astral Magic, which is a great resource. It's like $3 a month, and you get access to a bunch of great talks. And Jenifer was speaking on Chinese New Year and some of the four pillar systems of Chinese astrology. I have not studied any of this, and so I'm just going to reiterate some of the things that Jenifer talked about because she gave a really stellar talk. And if you're interested, you can probably check it out through her website or through the International Association of Astral Magic. And so Jenifer talked about how we're moving from the year of the dragon, which is Yang wood, into the year of the snake, which is Yin wood. And Yin wood is more subtle. She talked about it's related to, vines or grasses. Right. And the sort of strength that we have in a grass that can bend or, shift in the wind. Right. So maybe yeah, so like how it can like move and flex in the wind, and if we have a rigid tree, it can be blown over, right? So the yin wood is has some flexibility, right? And things which are not as like apparent, but are also strong, right? And the strength comes from flexibility. Jenifer also said that yin energy is related to survival and adaptability. It develops strength through its social networks, right? And I think that this is, I found this really important because as we are facing trying and turbulent times, right, we can find strength maybe through connecting with each other, right, supporting each other, resourcing with each other, right. She also said that yin wood is associated with learning, growth, and creativity. So this might be a good year for creativity and using one's network as a way of developing strength and resilience, as well as creative ideas and creative expansion. So, according to Jenifer Ng, the snake, this is the year of the wood snake, is associated with the element of fire. It's connected to mysticism because it scales shimmer and has a mystical and alluring quality. It is connected with wisdom and transformation because the snake sheds its skin. And there is also a quality of truth and efficiency to the snake. And Jenifer is saying that people might think that the snake is lazy, but because it just lays around in the sun. But really, what it's doing is waiting and conserving its energy until it's ready to strike and use its energy to achieve a goal, right? So it likes to relax until it's time to work, and then it works efficiently. And again, I think that this is really important for sort of the era that we are moving into, maybe collectively or politically, right? Not like freaking out and melting down and wasting energy, right? But like sitting there conserving energy until we are aware of this is the right action to take, right? And because of this sort of idea, the snake is connected to right timing. And again, this is Jenifer Ng, spelled last name is spelled NG. I hope I pronounced that right. And her talk was fantastic, and brought in a lot of wisdom around Chinese astrology and feng shui that I haven't studied, and was really fascinating. So again, you can check out the International Association of Astral Magic's website, and join them to find her talk and many other great talks. And I'll put a link to their organization in the show notes, as well as maybe Jenifer's website. Okay, so that is just my synopsis based on the one talk that I saw about Chinese New Year and some of the things to think about with entering into the year of the wood snake. But, I urge you to do your own research, because this is not an area that I specialize in. Okay, so during this full moon on Wednesday, January the 29th, we have a conjunction between Pluto and Mercury. This is occurring at 1 degree and 58 arc minutes of Aquarius. So again, Mercury dealing with information, communication, how we make connections, right? How we process information. And I think Mercury, coming into Aquarius is activating the Sun Pluto conjunction from last week, which we experienced on the 21st, which was like pretty intense. And so I think there was like kind of a physical experience that I had with that, right? And Mercury coming in might help us to process some of the information. This is what this meant. This is what was coming up with that. Like I'm getting some like, language around what those feelings might be or what that might have meant. Right, so we can get a little bit more conscious information about what was going on in the internal or unconscious level on the 21st, right? Mercury Pluto might bring up some intense thoughts, right, or cause some obsessive thinking. This might pull our thinking into the depths, right, into the Plutonian realms of Hades. Right. Mercury, again, is this go between. It's the messenger between the Olympian realm, the land of Zeus, and the super consciousness, right? And the underworld, the realms of Hades and the unconscious. So, how do we reconcile these two worlds? And I think people have been trying to figure this out forever, right? And how do we hold them both in our awareness? How do we hold both our eternal nature and our mortality, right? And our finite nature? This might be turning our thoughts towards our dead, right? Or this might be our literal ancestors, or the parts of ourselves that we have buried and abandoned, right? This might cause us to remember, or to turn inward, to turn towards our own personal underworld. There might be parts that we have lost to the underworld, or these parts might have messages that are important for us to hear, right? So how do we open our ear to the great below? Open our ears to the underworld. And this phrase, and I love this phrase, right, to open our ears to the great below, is one of the opening lines to the epic poem of Inanna's Journey to the Underworld. And that poem is associated with Venus retrograde. And I'll be talking more about it in that myth as we move towards the Venus retrograde. But, how do we like begin preparing ourselves for that underworld journey, where our sort of joy or our pleasure or our value gets pulled into the underworld? And how do we open to the messages that the underworld might be sharing with us, right? And opening our awareness to the unconscious. There might be information from that unconscious part of ourselves, excuse me, that wants to be heard. There might be parts that want to be known. So how do we make space to listen to this small, quiet voice? How can we open space to hear what is trying to be communicated by these underworld parts of ourselves? Right? So one of the things that also might come up during this new moon and with this Mercury conjunction with Pluto is we might want to get to the bottom of what's going on. We might want to go deep. want to know. Our perception might be open. There might be an opportunity to see below the surface. Secrets might come to light, right? Pluto dealing with the underworld. So, like, hidden things might come into consciousness, right? And so, last week with the sun's conjunction of Pluto, I talked about the black sun, right? This different kind of underworld way of seeing. And this may bring some of that information into our conscious awareness. And on a political level, I think we're going to see some things coming into awareness around what's going on and what's happening with this new presidency, that underworld vision now coming into consciousness, right? And this happens both in the external world and also in ourselves. There also might be some intense mental activity. Communications may have a depth or an intensity, right? Surface things may not be as satisfying. There's a desire to go really deep or to want to know what's under the surface. However, this might lead to obsessive thinking or becoming preoccupied with some idea that will cause us to like vortex or obsess. So if there's an idea or some mental activity, you can like give yourself to kind of chew on to help make use of this energy. And one of the things that I've been thinking about, right, is Cerberus, the three-headed dog that guards the gates to Hades, that guards the underworld, right? And so if we think about Mercury or like Mercury guiding us into the underworld, right, to sort of gain access to this information, we can think about what can we give Cerberus to chew on, right? What can we give that conscious kind of gatekeeping part of our mind? What problem or issue can we give them to chew on so that we can open to the unconscious and get a little deeper? Right, because that dog, right, the dogs of the consciousness, right, that Cerberus, that gatekeeper wants to chew on something, right? So give them something to chew on so you can sneak past and connect in with the depths and the riches that live just beyond the gates that Cerberus is guarding. Dig? All right. So moving on to Thursday, January the 30th, we have Uranus stationing direct at 23 minutes and 23 degrees and 15 arc minutes of Taurus. I'm not really going to talk about this because we have a bunch more stuff to get into, but I just wanted to let you all know that Uranus has been retrograde since September the 1st of 2024, and they stationed retrograde at 27 degrees and 15 arc minutes of Taurus. And now that they've stationed direct, they're going to be beginning their inexorable march towards the mutable air sign of Gemini. Can't remember when Uranus enters into Gemini, but we'll talk about that in the future. You can be sure of that. But I just want to let you all know that Uranus is changing directions. And this might externalize some of the internal breakdowns that we have been experiencing, or the desire to create something, or to break old habits or old systems. And so I think this might have been kind of incubating internally, and now as Uranus moves direct, there can be more of a desire to put these kind of frustrations, the things that have been frustrating us, into action and make changes that help us to feel a little bit more liberated, a little bit more free. But again, we'll talk about Uranus in future episodes. Also on Thursday, January the 30th, we have the sun in Aquarius trine Jupiter retrograde in Gemini. This is going down at 11 degrees and 18 arc minutes. So again, on Wednesday's new moon, we had Jupiter trining the sun moon conjunction, which formed our Aquarian new moon. That was going down at 9 degrees of Aquarius. And so then the sun continues to move forward and comes into a trine with Jupiter. That trine perfects. And so this is a very beneficial aspect, right? This can be some calm in the storm. Right. Trine is a harmonious aspect. It can be a place of integration and a place of kind of relaxation, right? Hard aspects like squares and oppositions create friction and create change. Trines and sextiles are kind of easy, like it's an easy flow, right? Which allows us to maybe like lean back and relax and to integrate some of the stuff that we have been going through during the more challenging aspects, right? However, like to put a trine to use, we have to like put in a little energy and a little effort, and maybe even more so because Jupiter is retrograde and they are in detriment in Gemini. but they are providing support for the new moon in Aquarius, and then the next day the sun. So Jupiter brings a sense of optimism to the party. Jupiter says tomorrow will be better than today, and that things will turn out all right. Jupiter's like, it'll be fine, don't worry about it, right? Jupiter brings sort of a wisdom that helps to create coherence. It is the narrative that helps us to make sense of situations, right? So the sun in Aquarius is able to get a bit of perspective, a little bit of distance from the situation, and Jupiter is helping us to make sense of that broader and more inclusive view, right? Jupiter helps us to see why this perspective is important. And, there's also this sense of the eternal that I think Gemini and Aquarius both create, right? So the story of the sign of Aquarius is the story of Ganymede, who is taken up to Olympus by Zeus in the form of eagle, right? And Ganymede becomes the cupbearer to the gods, who provides the nectar of eternal life to the Olympians, right? Ganymede is also, he also attains immortality by serving the gods, right? He becomes a star, sort of like Bob Dylan, right? Lifted out of the like normal and the mundane and raised up to a higher level, right? Of the level of the Olympians, even though he began as a mortal, right? And Zeus turns him into a constellation so his father and family can still see him, right? So this relationship between the sun in Aquarius and Jupiter in Gemini can give us access to some of the immortal ideas that help us to orient to life, right? So to think about, like, what are these immortal ideas, right? What are the sort of indivisible truths, right? What are the sort of beliefs that transcend time, right? Or the things that are beyond time, that never die, that I can connect to, right? That are inspiring, that help me to orient to life, right? Gemini also deals with immortality, right? And it's the story of Castor and Pollux, the twins, and I can never remember which one is which. They are also the children of Zeus and Leda, right? One of them is immortal and one of them is mortal. And again, I have no idea which one is which. They're twins. You can't tell them apart, right? And so the mortal one dies and goes to the underworld, right? And the eternal one, is immortal, and so they stay alive, right? So we have this immortal idea, and then its counterpart, which lives in the unconscious and rises when the other one sets, right? So the mortal one, the one in the underworld, is the dark twin, the sort of punk rock, the part that is connected to the earth and the wisdom of suffering and tragedy, right? Which I think is really important, right? Because this counterbalances the immortal part, which is maybe a little too clean, a little too polished, right? The mortal twin pulls us into life and into incarnation because it allows us to change, right? And allows for growth, right? Immortality doesn't, it stays static. So in the story of Ganymede, right, the story of Aquarius, we also kind of get this mortal part, right? His Ganymede's father, Tros, right, who mourns his son after he's abducted because he doesn't know where he goes, right? And to sort of placate him, Zeus gives him some magical horses that can run over water and prevent him from experiencing the depths of his feelings. If we think about water as a symbol of the emotions, right? And we're like dealing with these deep emotions, this deep grief, we're like pulled into this water, right? But if you have horses that can just run over water, it's like, yeah, whatever, everything's cool. Check out my cool horses, right? Oh yeah, my son, whatever, right? Not really being able to feel the depths of our feelings, right? And so I think that there is a quality of shallowness, right, to Tros, who can't really go into the depths. And so Jupiter in Gemini has this capacity to hold all of it, right, to bring this both and thinking or integrative thinking. This allows us to have the capacity to hold multiple truths and to experience multiple feelings at once, right? That, oh man, it's a bummer that my son is gone. And also, isn't it cool that I got these horses? you know I'm just joking, right? But the ability to hold the mortal twin and the immortal twin, the sort of eternal and the kind of time bound, right? And then it doesn't have to be either or one or the other, right? And I think this ability helps us to integrate that bigger picture that we are able to see from Olympus, right, with what is actually happening down here, right? We don't have to be like so locked into our terrestrial experience, right, or so locked into our detached perspective, right? And so, sorry, getting some neighbors passing by and some ambient noise. But to get back to what I was saying, being able to hold both the terrestrial, the earthbound, the mortal perspective, and the kind of Olympian view, right, the immortal, right, this provides an opportunity to hold both things simultaneously, right? And to integrate into that bigger picture, not just like that detached vision, but like what is happening emotionally, what is happening physically, but not getting so sucked into that we can't see the bigger picture. So being able to have both and thinking, I think, is really important in what this Jupiter trine the sun is offering us, right? And I think that this provides us the ability to kind of integrate some of what we are seeing from that Olympian view to what is happening right now. It provides the opportunity to cultivate the optimism that allows us to find emotional regulation, right? To start coming up with ideas that we can create change from a place where we can believe, right? Believe in the future. We can believe in the possibilities of what we are trying to do, right? We need that optimism. We need that Jupiterian sense that like this is going to work and tomorrow is going to be better than today, right? To be able to even initiate change, right? And so, having that Jupiterian belief and optimism and hope allows us to believe that these ideas are possible and not to feel overwhelmed and defeated, which I think is really important, especially now. So that brings us to Saturday, February the 1st, which is Imbolic, which occurs, I believe, February 1st into February 2nd, right? And so Imbolic falls between the winter solstice and the spring equinox. It's a cross quarter holiday. And this is, honoring the returning of the light because our days are starting to get a little bit longer, right? We're not equal yet, but we're getting a little bit more daylight, a little bit less night, right? And so I think that this is also the recognition that the seeds that we are planting in the earth are beginning to activate, right? That all of this energy is happening beneath the surface. All of this energy is happening in the unconscious, right? That makes way for the kind of sprouting that happens around the spring equinox, right? So even though, the ground might be covered in snow, even though it might be cold out, even though we're not really feeling like things are happening, there's all this stuff happening in the invisible world. All of this energy is getting ready to burst forth, and this is a time to be honoring. And so, one of my favorite things to do on Imbulk is to turn on all the lights in the house. Right, you do this like really quick. You open all the windows and turn on all the lights in the house, and this is a way of kind of like welcoming the light back. Right, and I think that I don't know. I think it's just fun because you get to like find all of the lights. Right, and you never have all of the lights in the house on ever all at once, except you could do it on Imbulk. And if anyone questions you, you can tell them this guy said it was okay, right? And so I think that's a really good way of like participating in this and honoring the light, right? This is the doctrine of sympathy, right? By like creating light in your space, you are welcoming it back. Right. And we open the windows to sort of bring in fresh air and also so that the light can come in from the inside. So I just wanted to name that, right? Because we besides like all of the astrology that's going on this week, we are entering into this shift, right? This lunar new year, this Chinese New Year, which is shifting from the dragon to the snake, right? And this sort of shift in the wheel of the year as we are moving from the dark time into like beginning to welcome back the light, right? And to acknowledge the sort of energy that is bubbling under the surface. Also, during this time, we have Venus in Pisces conjunct Neptune, excuse me, in Pisces at 27 degrees and 59 arc minutes. And again, this is occurring on Saturday, February the 1st. And so this is an interesting conjunction with Venus, Neptune in the North Node, all sort of conjunct at 27 degrees. We have Venus will be exactly conjunct the North Node in Pisces later that day at 28 degrees and 9 arc minutes. And then the North Node will conjunct Neptune on Thursday, February the 6th. And we'll talk about that. But we're having the North Node, the head of the dragon Rahu, and Neptune and Venus all meeting up at these last degrees of Pisces, right? The North Node just entered Pisces on January the 11th. And Neptune will be exiting Pisces on March the 30th. And so they are crossing paths, right, in this last decan of Pisces, and Venus is right there, right? And so Venus likes beauty. And in Pisces, you know, Venus is exalted. They are raised up, right? And so, one of the reasons that Venus functions so well in Pisces is Pisces deals with the imagination, and we can access beauty through the imagination and through creativity. Right. Neptune is connected with dreams and visions. And so this is an opportunity to plant a vision seed, a seed of creativity, a seed of a bigger, more beautiful vision. Initiating myth that helps us to vision something beautiful, right? Carolyn Casey, who's one of my favorite astrologers, says that one of the issues that we are facing in the modern world is a Venus problem, right? Lack of access to beauty, lack of access to nature, right? There's also a Neptunian problem where we lack this is also the Neptunian problem where we lack the exposure of to nature and actual beauty that helps to feed our imagination, right? And so our sort of exposure to media and pop culture and apps and scrolling and all this has sort of robbed us of our imagination. It has robbed us of the ability to envision something better or more beautiful, right? When we're able to participate and access beauty, it gives us material that we can draw from. And if we are if we are separated from that, if we don't see that, or if we think, oh, that only exists there, or that only exists for those people, or I can't have that, right? It sort of steals the possibility of creating that beautiful vision for ourselves, right? And so Neptune is also illusion and delusion. It's propaganda and advertising, right? So we might have our dreams and visions kind of usurped by the media and by advertising, right? These forces may have told us that we cannot have anything better or more beautiful, right? That like this is the only system, this is the only way, this is how it has to be, right? And this kind of robs us of our ability to dream something better or more beautiful, right? These systems tell us that we can't do this or that won't work because they might not be economically viable, right? Or beauty might, right? The story is that beauty only belongs to the wealthy, right? So as Venus meets up with the North Node, which is what we are hungering for on a collective level, and Neptune, which is about our dreams and our bigger visions, right? Neptune offers salvation. So how can we reclaim beauty, right? How do we reclaim our imagination? How do we plant a seed of a beautiful dream, one that can grow in the depths of the imagination, right? And create something beautiful in the future. And I think this is also connected with Imbol, right? Maybe these seeds are already planted. Maybe you already feel that in your heart, right? Maybe you already like know this in some unconscious realm, right? And we can give a little space to allow those seeds, that kind of energy to break free of their husk, right? To start putting down roots, to start growing in the unconscious and in the collective unconscious, right? Venus and Eros are the attractive principle, the principle of desire, which causes the world to spin, which holds us together in community, that holds us together in relationship. It's the glue that connects the world. It is the gravity that holds the universe together. How do we plant the seed in the imagination to cultivate this creative and generative force within us that helps to draw what we desire towards us? Right? Not what we are told to desire, but our actual heart's desire. This is a really good time to tune in to the self, right? To that small, quiet voice, and to tune into the heart and ask the heart what it truly desires, right? What it hungers for. How do we make a little space for our hearts, for what it desires and what its appetite is asking for? How can we feed it what it needs to be full? What is that substance, right? How do we honor our hearts and the vision that our hearts can offer us into the world? And how do we allow that vision to emerge from the depths of the unconscious, from beneath the waves, right? Like Aphrodite rising up on a clamshell. Can we call in this beauty? And can we plant the seed of a beautiful vision, of a beautiful dream in our hearts and in our minds and in the world? And if you allowed yourself to do that, what would it look like? What could that be? And then later that day, like I said, Venus in Pisces will conjunct the North Node in Pisces at 28 degrees and 9 arc minutes, right? And the North Node is kind of pulling us into incarnation. It is what we are hungering for. And again, I think, this relationship with Neptune and Venus is hungering for, the heart's desire and hungering for this bigger vision, this all-inclusive dream, right? And to like really sit with that this week, and to really tune into the heart and ask it what we can do for it, right? How we can be of service to that heart, the individual and also the collective heart that we are tied to, right? Because I think Pisces is the like all-encompassing fabric of life, the kind of ocean of consciousness that we are swimming in, right? And how do we tune into that and offer our service to that, right, in a heart-based way, based on our value system. So these are just a couple things to think about this week. And yeah, with that, I will bid you a fond farewell. And again, thank you all for tuning in to This Week in Space. It is my great honor and a pleasure to get to do this for you all this each week. It gives me a reason to wear this coat and to get dressed up in costumes that the neighbors keep looking at me kind of funny like. Um, yeah, I don't know, if you're checking this out, like it and subscribe and send it to people. I don't know, do what you do on YouTube, right? Do what the other YouTubers tell you what to do, because I don't know how to make that work. um what else do I have to say? Yeah, I'm taking a little break from Instagram, so this is where you can find me. Also, I'm going to be teaching a class on the 7 traditional planets with the brilliant artist and alchemist and author Marlena Seven Bremner. This class begins on March the 1st, and we have an early bird discount if you want to sign up before February the 1st. So a couple more days to get that early bird discount. It's a great class talking all about the 7 traditional planets. It's an 8-week class, so we go through each planet each week. We have an eighth class for integration. We're dealing with the psychology, the mythology, the alchemy, and the magic of each of the planets. So getting to know them on a kind of animate basis, learning to work with them, learning how they kind of function in the psyche, how they function in the world, and how we can come into better relationship with them. It is a fantastic class, and yeah, I hope to see you there. I will put a link to sign up in the show notes. And then the other announcement or advertisement that I have just before I peace out is I will be giving a talk at the Astro Fest in LA at the end of April. So tickets are going on sale, I believe, Thursday. It's going to be a great time. I know that Lindsay Turner and Sam Reynolds are going to be there, and a bunch of other great astrologers from all over the place. And yeah, it's going to be a good time. A lot of great astrology going down, great community of people. So if you're interested in that, come on down and check it out. I think I can put a link in the show notes. I think tickets go on sale Thursday. So something to put in your calendars or your diaries, however you keep that, something to look forward to. I'm definitely looking forward to it. And so, yeah, with that, that's all the astro weather that is fit to print, my friends. Thank you so much for tuning in. And yeah, be well out there. And as always, may the force be with you. And I'll see you all next week. Same wizard time, same wizard channel. And until then, be well, my friends. Bye now.